Hey guys, tonight we begin in a land where silence speaks louder than words, where the wrong bow can ruin your future, and where just stepping into a room without permission could get you disowned, or worse, politely ignored forever. When you think of medieval Japan, maybe you imagine cherry blossoms drifting past wooden temples, noble samurai standing under paper lanterns, tea ceremonies so graceful you can almost hear the silence between each sip. It's beautiful, isn't it? But what if I told you that in this world of serene poetry and sword-sharp etiquette, you, yes, modern you, would be a walking cultural disaster? I mean, let's face it, you slurp your noodles, text during meals, and probably think bowing is just for anime intros. In medieval Japan, that's not just awkward, it's offensive. Critically offensive. So, the real question is, would you survive even one single day in this finely tuned, socially calibrated society? Let's find out. But before you get comfortable, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments, where are you watching from? What time is it there? I love seeing our sleepy little time zone map light up. Dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up to the soft creak of bamboo doors, the rustling of reeds in the courtyard, and the distant call of a wooden clapper echoing through your neighborhood, marking the start of another day in medieval Japan. But don't stretch just yet. That small act of yawning and flopping your arms like a jellyfish? Yeah, you just dishonored your ancestors. Welcome to a world where waking up is already a test of your moral fiber. You're lying on a tatami mat. Not a bed. Not a mattress. A mat, woven straw, firm as judgment, covered in a linen sheet that may or may not have been aired out this season. No pillow either. You've got a wooden headrest, carefully positioned to keep your intricate hair untouched. Even your sleep posture has expectations. You're supposed to rest on your side, hands gently folded, facing slightly away from others, like a noble corpse. Roll over snoring and drooling? That's peasant-tier behavior. Now rise. But not with a groan. You kneel up slowly, fold your bedding perfectly, creases sharp enough to slice shame, and bow lightly to the room. The spirits are watching, and possibly judging. Your first words, if any, must be soft, quiet, polished. If you grunt out something like, "Ugh, morning already?" you've just spiritually face-planted. Hygiene time. But don't expect a shower, or privacy, or even running water. You tiptoe, literally, to the wash basin. There's a ritual involved. Hands first, left then right, then the mouth. You rinse not to clean but to purify. If you're in a temple household, there's probably sacred water from a bamboo ladle. You do not spit loudly. You do not splash. You do not breathe like a wild ox. There is no soap. Instead, you gently rub your face with warm water and maybe a cotton cloth. Deodorant? No. Perfume if you're from a noble household. Sandalwood maybe. For peasants, just less stink is the goal. No toothpaste either. You might chew on twigs or rinse with salted water. Your breath? Probably smells like dried fish and boiled barley. But in a good way. Kind of. And here's where it gets brutal, your hairstyle. For men, especially samurai, the chanmage top knot isn't just a look. It's a declaration of discipline. That shaved top and tied tail says, "I'm serious about being serious." For women, elaborate buns with pins, combs, and subtle floral oil. You don't style your hair. You construct it. Like origami but with vanity and pain. Touch your hair improperly? That's social seppuku. Even your robe, the kimono, is a daily puzzle of grace and etiquette. Left over right always, unless you're dead. And if you accidentally tie the belt in the wrong way, too loose, too high, too asymmetrical, you're either dressed like a courtesan or a fool. And trust me, neither gets invited back to tea. And speaking of robes, you put them on while kneeling, not standing. Standing while dressing is animalistic. You move with slow, measured gestures. Each tie and fold a quiet homage to restraint. The entire act of dressing is like a dance choreographed by someone who really hates sudden movements. Now shoes. Wooden clogs called geta if you're headed out, or softer indoor slippers called zori if you're staying in. But don't just stomp around. You slide. Yes, slide. Your feet barely leave the ground. Walking like you're moon gliding on polished wood is peak refinement. Lift your heels too much and you sound like a marching beetle. That's how the neighbors know you're not properly raised. You haven't even left the house yet, and you're already navigating a minefield of manners. Breakfast? We'll get there. But before that, bowing. It's an Olympic event here. A slight tilt of the head? Casual hello. A deeper waist bend? Respect. Knees on floor, head to tatame? You messed up. Big time. There's even etiquette about when to stop bowing. If someone bows to you longer than you bow back, you've just committed an arrogance offense. Bow too long and now you look like a suck-up. It's bow-to-bow combat, and the rules change depending on class, age, and occasion. Let's say you run into a neighbor. Maybe it's an elder. Maybe it's someone of higher rank. You don't look them directly in the eyes. Eye contact? That's aggression. Instead, a respectful gaze toward the floor, a breathy ohayou gozaimasu, and a soft bow with wrists parallel and visible. Even the angle matters. A 15-degree nod is casual. A 30-degree bow is respectful. A 45-degree bow? You probably knocked over their sacred bonsai tree and need forgiveness. There's no winging it here. You are constantly judged not by what you meant, but by how gracefully you failed. Now, let's talk about the toilet. No, not the porcelain throne you know and love. Think wooden box or pit. If you're noble, maybe a ceramic seat. If you're a monk, it's behind the temple wall, next to a stone basin and a suspicious-looking ladle. No flushing. You clean yourself with a stick, sometimes wrapped in cloth, sometimes not. You figure it out. And no matter what, silence. Even your bodily functions must be respectful. There's even a special term, shobana-noto, literally the sound of urination. If it's too loud, embarrassing. There were even water devices called toilet sound masks to hide the noise. That's how deep this etiquette goes. They invented white noise. Back in your home, you pass by the family shrine. This is a moment of reverence. You light incense. You might offer tea or rice. Not because anyone's watching, but because that's what a good person does. A person with giri, duty. You bow. Hold. Release. Your family members start to stir. You greet them with formal phrases. You do not speak out of turn. You do not laugh too loudly. The father or eldest male often eats first. The mother serves quietly. The children kneel in perfect posture, awaiting permission. You're about to eat, but first let's pause. Take a breath. Because you've only been awake for 45 minutes. And already, your modern instincts have committed cultural crimes that would get you uninvited from polite society, possibly forever. Scratched your head during prayer? Forbidden. Sat cross-legged in front of your in-laws? Outrageous. Sang a song while washing your face? What are you, a minstrel? Here's the wild part. For those living in medieval Japan, none of this felt burdensome. These were not chains. They were the rhythm of a life well lived. Predictable, dignified, almost soothing. But for you, this isn't morning routine. It's behavioral parkour. And you haven't even chewed anything yet. Now, breakfast. You'd think it'd be simple. A nice bowl of rice, maybe some miso soup, a polite itadakimasu, and we move on. But no. In medieval Japan, eating isn't just about food. It's about grace. It's about awareness. It's about not embarrassing your ancestors with how you hold a pair of sticks. Let's start with sitting down. You don't plop into a chair. There are no chairs. You kneel. Size of position. Legs folded beneath you, spine straight like a bamboo shoot, hands resting gently in your lap. Are you comfortable? Of course not. But that's not the point. Comfort is a Western illusion. Dignity is the goal. The mat you sit on has meaning. The higher your status, the closer you sit to the head of the table, if there's even a table. Most meals happen at low trays or directly on the floor. You don't take the best spot. That would be rude. You wait to be seated. You don't complain if you're farthest from the hearth, even if your fingers are turning blue. It's called humility. Try it sometime. Now let's talk about the meal itself. Imagine this. A small bowl of rice. Some pickled vegetables. A little broth. Maybe a dried fish. That's it. That's the entire breakfast. And no, there's no bacon, no pancakes, no bottomless coffee with oat milk and cinnamon sprinkles. There's tea bitter, hot, unflavored. And yes, your lips must touch the cup gently. No slurping unless you're doing soba noodles, but even then there's a rhythm to it. A controlled slurp. Not a jet engine. You bow before eating. Itadikamasu. It means, I humbly receive. You say it aloud. Not because anyone's around, but because the rice deserves your gratitude. A farmer planted it. A mother steamed it. A god made the rain. You don't just eat, you acknowledge. And here's where things get dangerous. The chopsticks. There is no faster way to declare, I am a cultural barbarian, than by mishandling your chopsticks. Here are just a few of the ways to offend everyone at the table and potentially summon the ghost of your great-great-grandteacher. Stick your chopsticks upright into your rice? That's funeral practice. You've just reenacted a death ritual over breakfast. Use them to point at someone? You've declared war. Pass food from one chopstick to another? You've mimicked a cremation ceremony. Lick them? Unacceptable. Rub them together like you're sharpening a weapon? Disgraceful. Tap them on the bowl? Are you a beggar? There is an entire etiquette just for holding, using, and resting your chopsticks. You lay them horizontally when not in use, preferably on a chopstick rest. If none is available, carefully balance them on the edge of your dish. Parallel. Neat. Come. Now, finally, you may take your first bite. But wait, do not talk. Do not sigh. Do not compliment the food unless asked. Silence is golden. You chew with your mouth closed. You do not let the rice grains fall. You lift the bowl to your mouth if needed, but only slightly. Your movements must be compact, modest, precise. You're not feeding yourself. You're composing a visual haiku with your hands. Do you want more pickles? Don't reach. Ask subtly. Don't point. Don't lean. Don't scoop. Let the host serve you or wait your turn. In formal settings, even the way you unfold your napkin is observed. And no, napkin doesn't mean a thick piece of paper towel. It's often a square cloth that has to be folded back to its original shape once the meal is over. And speaking of ending the meal, yes, there's a phrase for that too. Gokususuma deshita. Thank you for the feast. Even if you barely ate. Even if the miso was cold. Even if the pickles tasted like vinegar revenge. You say it. Every time. Because eating isn't about your enjoyment. It's about respect for effort, tradition, and life itself. Let's add a little twist. You're not a man. You're a woman. Now things get trickier. In many medieval Japanese households, especially among samurai or noble classes, women and children ate after the men. You prepared the food. You served the tea. Then you knelt quietly to the side, hands folded, while the men dined in silence. No slurping, no commentary, just the quiet ceremony of consumption. When they finished, then you could eat. Alone. At the same tray. With whatever was left. Even the act of eating was gendered. Women were expected to chew quietly, avoid large bites, and never speak while chewing. Laughing at the table? Unthinkable. Burping? Social death. Asking for more rice without being offered? Brazen. The only time you raise your voice during a meal is to say, "Sumimasen," when you've spilled something, and even then you must bow deeply while cleaning up your mistake. And then there's the tea. Oh, the tea. If you've ever thought a tea party was just pinkies up and sipping delicately, welcome to Shinoyu, the Japanese tea ceremony, the Super Bowl of manners. It's not just about drinking. It's about choreography, philosophy, cleanliness, awareness. Here's a sample moment. You receive the tea bowl. You bow. You rotate the bowl, yes, rotate, to admire the craftsmanship. You lift it with both hands. You take a sip quietly. You wipe the rim after drinking. You bow again. Return the bowl in the exact angle you received it. If you mess up even one of those steps, you've committed what is essentially social slapstick. And heaven forbid you interrupt the silence. The room, called a chishitsu, is designed for tranquility. The host spent hours selecting the scroll, the flowers, the bowl. Your only job is to be present. No phones, no idle talk, no comments like, "Wow, this is just like matcha at Starbucks." That might trigger a historical haunting. Let's go back to daily meals. In a rural peasant home, the etiquette is less ceremonial, but no less important. Meals are communal, and the rice bowl is sacred. It's passed from mother to child, from grandfather to grandson. Cracking jokes or fighting over pickles. That's city nonsense. In the countryside, your meal is a moment of unity. Even the family dog knows to sit respectfully nearby, not beg. What about street food? Surely you can relax while munching on a skewer? Not exactly. In many eras, eating while walking was frowned upon. You stop. You stand to the side. You enjoy your yakitori quietly. You don't talk with your mouth full. You don't laugh with your mouth open. And you absolutely do not toss the skewer into the street. There's a box for that. Use it. Still hungry? Too bad. Snacking outside official mealtime is seen as gluttonous. You're not a raccoon. Show some restraint. And now let's zoom out. Because this relentless etiquette around food isn't random. It's rooted in something deeper. The concept of harmony. Every meal, every gesture, every silence is part of maintaining balance. Not just in the room but in the universe. Your chopstick etiquette is a reflection of your soul. Your seating position is a measure of your humility. Even your tea-drinking rhythm whispers who you are. You eat to honor the food, to blend into the group, to disappear into grace. Compare that to modern eating habits. Food delivered by drones, slurped in traffic, eaten while scrolling TikTok. Sauces on everything. Elbows on tables. Fries as finger extensions. You'd never survive the lunchroom of a 15th century Kyoto monastery. Because here's the truth. Meals in medieval Japan were never just about sustenance. They were small, sacred performances. And you? You just wandered on stage mid-scene, dropped your fork, which no one uses, burped and said, "So what's for dessert?" And there is no dessert. So you've survived the morning rituals and fumbled your way through breakfast without turning your chopsticks into an accidental funeral rite. You might be feeling a little proud. Don't. Because now you have to talk to someone. And in medieval Japan, opening your mouth isn't about expressing yourself. It's about navigating an invisible web of honor, shame, and linguistic booby traps. Let's say you meet someone in the garden. Maybe a neighbor, maybe a traveling monk, maybe the uncle of your rice merchant's cousin. You cannot just say hi. The very idea of a casual hey is absurd. Instead you bow. Of course. You calculate their status in milliseconds. Are they older? Higher ranked? Wearing silk? Holding a fan? Carrying a scroll? That scroll might make them a scholar. Or a tax official. Either way dangerous. Your greeting must reflect all of this. If they're superior, you go for Ohayo gozaimasu, but softly. No bright good morning smiles here. This isn't Disneyland. It's a society where tone and humility are your oxygen. Now pronouns. Modern you is used to saying I, you, we, like a caffeinated podcast host. But in medieval Japanese, using I is like choosing a weapon in a duel. Each word, watashi, boku, or sesha, waga, signals something about your status, your gender, your job, and your mood. Say or and you're either a samurai or a rude brat. Say watakushi and you sound like a royal scribe auditioning for a no play. Choose wrong and suddenly you've implied arrogance, flirtation, or feudal rebellion. Referring to others? Even worse. Every person is wrapped in layers of titles. You don't say Tanaka. You say Tanaka-sama if they're higher than you. Tanaka-san if they're equal. Tanaka-dano if you're trying to flatter them. Tanaka-kun if you're a teacher and they're 12. Say Tanaka-chan and you've just called a nobleman a puppy. Imagine talking to your boss and accidentally calling them cutie. That's where you are now. Then there's Kigo, the politest of polite speech. It's a system of honorific verbs and suffixes so complicated it makes Latin declensions look like baby talk. Everything changes, verbs, pronouns, nouns, even adjectives. You don't just say eat. You say meshiagaru if you're talking about someone important eating. You say ita de kamasu if you're the one eating humbly. If you get the direction wrong, you've accidentally implied that your lord is beneath you. Congratulations. You just insulted your employer while thanking him. Let's play this out. You're sent to deliver a message to your lord's cousin. You approach. You bow. You keep your eyes down. You kneel. You place the message on the mat, not hand it directly because you're not worthy of touching their hand. Then you say, translation, I have humbly come to convey the command of the Lord. But here's the thing, you didn't say I came. You used the humble verb maramashita, a form of to come, that erases your ego and makes you a polite little cloud drifting into the scene. Every verb, every syllable is soaked in hierarchy. Now imagine trying to make small talk. There is no small talk. You don't ask, how was your weekend? There are no weekends. You don't joke about the weather. The weather is either a divine blessing or a potential famine. You might compliment their garden, but not directly. Instead, something like, this region's seasonal transitions are particularly elegant. Elegant. Indirect. Wrapped in the kind of language that makes even a simple flower bloom with existential dignity. Then there's silence. Modern conversation fills gaps. Awkward silences are terrifying. But in medieval Japan, silence is power. It signals thoughtfulness, restraint, grace. The more important the person, the longer their pauses. You speak after them, not over them. If someone pauses for 5 seconds, you wait 6. Let's not forget gender. If you're a woman, your speech is expected to be soft, passive, and filled with honorifics. Ending sentences with desu wa or gozaimasu in a gentle tone is expected. You don't shout. You don't debate. You speak like a porcelain bell, delicate, pleasant, and mostly in the background. If you're a samurai, entirely different tone. You might speak in short, clipped phrases. Deep voice. No smile. No hedging. You use rougher pronouns. You speak only when necessary. Every word is a blade, clean, precise, deadly. Say too much and you lose face. Say too little and you seem cold. Speak wrongly, and, well, there's a short sword for that. What about letters? Maybe you think, well, I'll just write instead. Good luck. Japanese calligraphy wasn't just about content. It was an art of gesture. Your brushstrokes were judged not only for legibility but for soul. A poorly angled kanji? A rushed curve? That's a stain on your character. Love letters, especially, were judged by paper quality, ink darkness, fragrance, and the choice of seasonal metaphors. Send a poem referencing plum blossoms in summer and your crush will ghost you for the rest of the century. Even apologies are rituals. You don't just say sorry. You prostrate yourself. You might kneel outside someone's home for hours. You write poems of regret. You send gifts. Wrapping matters more than the object. You apologize not for what you felt, but for disrupting the harmony of the group. Let's say you stepped on your superior's foot. You don't say, oops, my bad. You say, this grave inconvenience is entirely the result of my own moral failing. Yes, your moral failing. Even storytelling is bound by rules. You don't just launch into tales. You begin with seasonal greetings. You offer context. You avoid bragging. You don't say, I defeated 10 bandits. You say, by fortune's grace, I somehow emerged alive. Now let's flip it. Imagine a modern you walking through a Kyoto neighborhood in 1470. Someone bows. You nod. Mistake. Someone asks if they can enter your house. You say, sure, come in. Huge mistake. You didn't decline once, then twice before reluctantly agreeing. You just gave away hospitality without the ritual of resistance. You call someone by name without honorifics? Social catastrophe. You answer too quickly? Suspicious. You don't defer every compliment? Arrogant. You try to be casual and funny? Obnoxious. You say, what's up, to a noble woman? Congratulations. You've just reinvented public shame. It's exhausting. And yet, to the people living in this world, it wasn't. It was beautiful. Their language was their culture. Every phrase carried centuries of thought. Every silence was poetry. Every bow was history. You didn't just speak Japanese. You lived it. And if you failed, you wouldn't be screamed at. You'd be corrected with a quiet glance. A longer pause. A subtle shift in distance. Social exclusion didn't come with rage. It came with silence. The kind that follows you like a shadow. So next time you open your mouth, remember, this isn't conversation. It's survival. Now that you've just survived the verbal gymnastics of medieval Japanese conversation, it's time to get dressed properly, or at least try not to accidentally insult 5 centuries of social expectation. Because in this world, clothing isn't fashion. It's a flag, a prayer, a trap. Let's start with the basics, the kimono. It looks simple, right? A flowing robe tied at the waist, maybe a little floral pattern, elegant and breezy. But if you, dear time-traveling soul, think it's just a robe, you're already halfway to cultural exile. Because the kimono isn't clothing. It's a performance. Every element of your outfit says something about your age, your status, your gender, your profession, your mood, your intentions, and occasionally even your marital status. All without you saying a word. That's efficient and terrifying. First mistake? Left over right. Always. You tie the left side of the kimono over the right. Right over left is reserved strictly for the dead. And yes, people will notice. Show up to market wearing a corpse wrap and watch conversations dry up faster than last year's rice yield. Now the obi. That's the wide belt or sash you tie around your waist. Except, not around your waist. If you're a man, it should sit a little lower. If you're a woman, it wraps higher, tighter, and with enough layers to qualify as medieval armor made of silk and passive aggression. The knot? Oh, the knot. For casual wear, a simple square in the back is fine. But for formal occasions, there are dozens of options. Some knots resemble butterflies. Others look like folded drums. One even resembles a blooming flower. And guess what? Each one conveys something. Tie the wrong knot and you've either proposed marriage, declared mourning, or accidentally dressed like a geisha without a license. And speaking of geisha, never, ever wear your obi in the front. That style is strictly for courtesans. Wearing it forward in a noble home is like walking into a business meeting in lingerie and saying, "Whoops, I thought this was the spa." Now fabric, silk, expensive, reserved for nobility and the very lucky. Cotton, acceptable. Now, more likely, especially if you're a farmer or someone who's seen one too many floods. But color is where the real danger lies. Let's play fashion roulette. You like purple? Bad news. In medieval Japan, deep purple was reserved for the highest of aristocracy. You wear it, you're basically impersonating royalty. That's illegal. Yes, illegal color schemes. How about bright red? Well, that might be okay if you're a bride. Otherwise, people might assume you're a little too enthusiastic. Muted tones, browns, grays, pale blues, are safer. Dyes were costly. The rarer the color, the higher the status. So if you're wearing saffron yellow and you don't own a temple, someone's going to call you out. Footwear? Simple. Unless it isn't. You wear zori or geta, traditional wooden sandals. But never indoors. Never. The moment you step into a home, you leave your footwear at the door, facing outwards, neatly aligned, like you're about to be inspected by a particularly judgmental shoe spirit. Leave them messy? It says you're chaotic. Face them the wrong direction? It says you expect to storm out, not stay peacefully. Walk around in socks on dirty wood floors? Scandalous. And speaking of socks, tabi the split-toed kind. You wear them with sandals. But they must be clean. Spotless. Bright white. Dirty tabi say you're either slovenly or a ghost impersonator. Neither is ideal. Let's rewind. You wake up. You reach for your kimono. But which one? The one with chrysanthemums is for autumn. The one with cherry blossoms? Spring. Bamboo and plum blossoms? Winter. Get the season wrong and you're either uncultured or trying too hard. Both are social crimes. Your sleeves matter too. Long, flowing sleeves indicate youth or unmarried status. Shorter sleeves say you're older or married. So if you're a married woman wearing long sleeves, you're either making a statement or a mistake. Either way, the neighbors are gossiping. And let's talk hair. We did a bit of this earlier, but now it's serious. For men, especially samurai, the top knot isn't just a hairstyle, it's a visual contract. The crown is shaved to reduce heat under helmets. The rest is oiled, combed, tied, and occasionally lacquered. Yes, lacquered. Like furniture. Remove your helmet in public? That top knot better be pristine. Messy hair means disrespect. And if you're bald, wear a head cloth. Exposed scalp without reason is a visual scream. Women? Oh, it's a daily origami war. Hairpins, combs, ribbons, buns stacked like architectural marvels. The shimada bun was common among married women, while the takashimada, higher, puffier, was for brides. Wearing the wrong bun style is like showing up to a funeral in a wedding veil. And don't forget the accessories. A folding fan tucked in your obi. A fragrant sachet sewn into your collar. A little mirror hidden in your sleeve. These aren't just cute. They're cultural signals. A woman who produces her own fan during a conversation says she's refined, composed. A man who carries a fan but never opens it? That's deliberate restraint. He's mysterious, or sweaty, but mostly mysterious. Now let's test your survival skills. Imagine it's the festival of the Gion Matsuri. You're attending a formal procession. People are dressed to the nines. You, not wanting to stand out, choose a floral patterned kimono in lavender silk, tie your obi in a modest rear bow, and step out proudly in red zori sandals. Sounds fine, right? Wrong. Lavender equals upper court rank. Your pattern is out of season. The sandals are bridal. Your obi bow is for semi-formal events. You've just told everyone you're a springtime noble bride attending a funeral in July. Congratulations. You've achieved aesthetic chaos. And now the real kicker, you can't fix it on the spot. Because disrobing or adjusting clothes in public is deeply shameful. You must walk through the festival, smiling politely, knowing that every glance is judging you not for who you are, but for the crimes your fabric just committed. Even jewelry is suspect. Too much and you're vain. Too little and you're poor. Flashy hairpins? Only if you're under 25. Gold accessories? Only if you've been officially blessed or promoted. Handmade accessories? Acceptable. Store-bought trinkets? Tacky. Let's say you've somehow survived breakfast, small talk, and fashion. You've bowed your way through the hallway, mumbled the correct pronouns, and your obi hasn't betrayed you publicly. Things are going well. Until someone invites you to a shrine. You smile politely. They say it's just a little prayer ceremony. Maybe to bless the harvest. Maybe to purify a newborn. You nod. Sounds nice. Spiritual. Serene. A good cultural experience. But let's be clear. This isn't just drop by and light a candle. This is a test. Of posture. Of pacing. Of your ability to not step on the sacred gravel. Welcome to the sacred heart of medieval Japanese life, where religion isn't a thing you believe. It's a thing you perform. And every mistake echoes. Let's begin with the Torii Gate. The big red arch at the entrance of a Shinto shrine. Most visitors today walk straight through it. Boldly. Confidently. Maybe even taking a selfie mid-step. In medieval Japan? No. Just no. You approach slowly. You bow. Before entering. What? Because beyond that gate the world shifts. You're no longer just a person. You're a guest of the gods. Then comes the path. Easy, right? Just walk. Wrong again. You do not walk in the center. That's the path of the kami, the spirits. You stick to the side. Quietly. Like a respectful ghost who knows their place. Drag your feet? Shameful. Speak loudly? Disgraceful. Eat, drink, or, heaven forbid, laugh? You've just turned a sacred ritual into a sitcom. Then there's the temazuya, the purification station. A stone basin filled with water, with ladles neatly lined up. You don't just splash your face and move on. There's an order. Ladle with the right hand. Pour water over your left. Switch hands. Pour over the right. Switch again. Pour water into your left hand. Rinse your mouth discreetly. Spit beside the basin, not back in. Tip the ladle vertically to let the rest of the water wash down the handle. If you skip a step, it's not just messy, it's sacrilegious. And no, you don't dry your hands on your pants. Or sleeves. Wet palms are the mark of someone purified. If it's uncomfortable, good. That's tradition hugging you aggressively. Now you're ready to approach the shrine. You climb the stone steps carefully. Each step is symbolic. Don't rush. Don't trip. Don't talk. At the main hall, there's an offering box. You drop a coin in, not because it buys blessings, but because it shows respect. You bow twice. Clap twice. Make your prayer. Bow once more. That's the Shinto rhythm. 2 bows, 2 claps, 1 bow. Mess up the order? You might as well have screamed your wish into a sewer grate. And if you're part of the ceremony itself, say during a purification rite or harvest blessing, things get even more intense. Take your shoes off before entering the Hayden, the worship hall. Step in with the correct foot, usually the left. Walk in a semicircle. Don't face the altar directly until it's time. When seated, your posture must be upright. Knees bent under you. Hands resting on your thighs. Eyes lowered but alert. You don't cough. You don't shuffle. You don't ask when it's over. The priest, Kanushi, enters. You don't look directly at him. His robes are symbolic. His words are not for you. They're for the gods. And now, the offering. Maybe it's a small branch of the sacred sakiki tree. Maybe a bowl of rice. Maybe a folded piece of paper tied in ritual knots. You offer it with both hands, arms extended. You bow low. Your hands should never be higher than your chest, unless you're offering your entire soul. Then comes the dance. Yes, dance. The kagura is an ancient performance offered to entertain the gods. You sit in silence as a shrine maiden. Miko dances slowly, fan in one hand, bells in the other. Every step, every turn, every lift of her arm has meaning. She's not dancing for you. She's dancing for something older than memory. Clap at the end? No. You nod. Maybe. And what if you're at a Buddhist temple instead? Different gods. Different vibe. Same pressure. You arrive. There's a bell. But you don't ring it like a doorbell. You wait. You observe. You let someone else do it first. It's rung to announce your presence to the bodhisattvas, not to demand entry. Inside, the air thickens. The incense hangs like ancestral breath. Statues of Kannon or Amida tower above you, serene and terrifying. You remove your shoes. Again. Always. You walk on wooden planks that creak like they're judging your karma. You kneel before the altar. Light incense. Place it gently. Do not wave it around. Do not sniff it. Do not use it to burn away your modern sins in one puff. Then you bow. And bow again. And if you're unsure, just bow more. Bowing excessively never offends. Not bowing enough? That's how ghosts follow you home. Let's talk funerals. In medieval Japan, funerals were as much about etiquette as mourning. You don't wear bright colors. You don't cry loudly. You don't touch the body unless instructed. And when incense is offered, you hold it like sacred fire. Not a scented stick. A conduit. You may be handed beads, juzu. Don't swing them. Don't fidget. You loop them once around your palms, press your hands together and pray. Quietly. Elegantly. Every movement must say, I understand death. Because death isn't chaos here. It's continuation. Rituals bridge the gap. And your role? To honor that bridge with absolute composure. Weddings? No pressure. Just centuries of expectations. Gifts are given, but always in nashibukuro, envelopes folded a certain way, sealed with specific cords depending on the occasion. Wrong color? Wrong knot? You've doomed the marriage. Ceremonies are long, formal, full of layered clothing, symbolic cups of sake, and slow, deliberate movement. You don't flirt. You don't make speeches. You sit, smile, nod, and pray the groom doesn't trip on his 4th silk layer. And yet, beneath all this pressure, is something strangely calming. Because when everything is scripted, you don't need to guess. You just follow the flow. And soon you realize, ritual is not about belief. It's about rhythm, discipline, and surrender. It's about the daily performance of respect. Not for others, but for life itself. And while modern you might balk at all the rules, the silence, the precision, deep down part of you begins to crave it. The simplicity, the clarity, the shared understanding that every moment can be sacred if you treat it as such. But of course, you won't remember any of this the next time someone hands you a ladle and asks you to rinse. Because old habits die hard. And old gods? They remember. So you've bathed in silence, eaten with reverence, spoken like a nervous poet, and survived a religious ceremony without spiritually face-planting. You're getting confident. Dangerous. Because now you step outside. And outside is where the real performance begins. In medieval Japan, society wasn't just structured. It was stratified. Not like a ladder, climbable one rung at a time, but like a multi-tiered wooden bento box, each compartment sealed off and very aware of its own ingredients. And you? You're the garnish. Let's begin with walking. Yes, walking. You don't stroll. You don't stride. You don't swagger. You glide, calm, low-footed, like a polite ghost with joint stiffness. Your path is deliberate, your speed calculated. Too fast? Rude. Too slow? Suspicious. And who you let pass matters. See a monk? Step aside. A noble? Bow, low from the waist. A samurai? Move first, ask questions later. Or don't. Just disappear briefly behind a wall until they pass. Now posture. Straight back. Eyes modestly lowered. Hands at your side or tucked into your sleeves. And never make big gestures. You're not explaining a football play. You're a background character in someone else's divine narrative. But perhaps the most dangerous act in public? Sitting. Because in medieval Japan, how you sit is a confession. If you drop onto your bottom cross-legged, you've just signaled disrespect, laziness, and possibly mild criminal intent. That's how bandits sit. Or children. Or the deeply confused. Proper sitting is seiza. Knees folded under. Spine straight. Ankles crossed just right. Hands on thighs. Chin slightly lowered. You remain still, motionless, as if your dignity depends on it. Because it does. You don't stretch your legs in front of others. Especially not toward someone of higher status. Your feet are basically offensive language with toes. And speaking of status, let's meet the cast. At the top, the emperor. Technically divine. Lives in a world so far above yours that even his shadow carries social implications. Then the kyuj, court nobles. They speak in refined tones, write poetry, wear 12-layered robes, and occasionally faint from the weight of tradition. Below them, the byuk, the warrior class. Samurai. Think discipline, lacquered armor, suppressed emotions, and the ability to kill you for impoliteness. Actually, don't think that. Just remember it. Always. Then comes the peasants, but don't laugh. These weren't random villagers. They held status because they produced food. Without rice, there is no empire. Without empire, there is no war. Without war, samurai have nothing to do. So yes, peasants mattered. Next, artisans, builders, smiths, carpenters. Honorable, skilled, respected. Then, merchants. The bottom rung. What? Because they didn't make anything. They just moved wealth around. And in a Confucian society, usefulness profit. So even if you're rich, you bow to the blacksmith. And at the very, very bottom, outcasts, the bureaucramen. They handled death, tanners, executioners, grave diggers. Necessary. Fear. Shun. You don't make eye contact. You certainly don't borrow a cup of rice. So when you're in public, every gesture, every glance, every bow carries the weight of this hierarchy. Let's say you meet a samurai. You're a merchant. You bow. You don't speak unless spoken to. You use honorifics, keep your gaze low, and answer in half sentences unless asked to elaborate. If you're carrying a package, you lower it. You don't walk on the elevated side of the road. You don't comment on their sword. If they scowl, you apologize for existing in their line of sight. What? Because samurai had the right of kirisut gomen, the legal right to cut down a commoner who insulted their honor. And insult was interpretive. Too loud? Too close? Too opinionated? That might be enough. So you perform respect like it's oxygen. Even greetings were tiered. You don't say good morning to a noble the way you say it to a neighbor. You bow deeper. You soften your tone. You use different vocabulary. And if they bow back, it's shorter, cooler. Like they're doing you a favor by acknowledging your atoms. And don't forget social proximity. You don't stand too close to someone above you. That's presumptuous. You don't stand too far from someone below you. That's disdainful. You hover in the perfect distance. Visible, humble, non-threatening. At public gatherings, seating is a minefield. You don't just plop down next to whoever's fun. You wait to be placed. By rank. By age. By ancestry. By job. If you're at a banquet, your dish size, chopstick length, and proximity to the host all reflect your status. Got the small cup? It's not stinginess. It's a social ranking. At events, you don't arrive early and chat. You arrive quietly. Bow to the gate. Greet the host. Sit where you're told. Speak when addressed. Compliment the decorations. Eat slowly. Leave before you're asked. What about markets? Surely, in the chaotic noise of commerce, manners ease up. No. Even bartering is laced with deference. You don't shout prices. You don't handle money roughly. You offer it with two hands. You apologize if it's coins, not notes. You nod respectfully even when haggling, especially when haggling. You thank the vendor. You step aside. You don't loiter. You don't sample without buying. You don't eat in front of the stall. You think you're just buying a turnip. But in that exchange is a centuries-old ritual of dignity. And heaven help you if you're in a tea house. Because their social hierarchy is weaponized. Seating again reflects status. Who pours the tea? Who is served first? Even who enters the room first. And if you stand up mid-ceremony to stretch your legs, you've just socially detonated. So here's your day, modern traveler. You leave your house. Bow to the threshold. Walk with small steps. Pass a priest. Nod. Pass a noble. Bow. See a farmer. Nod again. A samurai approaches. You stop. Step aside. Bow. Keep your eyes lowered. You arrive at market. Speak softly. Apologize for touching the eggplant. Pay with grace. Step aside. You pass a monk. Don't ask questions. Don't interrupt. You visit a friend's house. You remove shoes. Kneel to greet the mother. Offer a small gift, wrapped. Speak in honorifics. Leave before dark. You return home having survived 8 hours in public without triggering a duel, a scandal, or a sermon. Congratulations. You're exhausted. Because in this society, being polite isn't just about saying please and thank you. It's about constantly reading a room made of invisible rules and centuries-old ghosts. It's not exhausting for them. It's harmony. For you, it's like juggling swords with a blindfold while bowing. So you've survived tea ceremonies, market etiquette, and the perilous dance of social hierarchy. You've mastered how to bow, sit, speak, and eat without offending a deity or being accidentally beheaded. Now you think, surely love is simpler. No, because in medieval Japan, falling in love wasn't a spontaneous kiss in the rain. It was more like a carefully written essay delivered at midnight, scented with incense, written in the right poetic meter, folded at a specific angle, and slipped under a paper door without being seen. Love wasn't romantic. It was strategic. First of all, let's set the stage. This isn't Hollywood. There are no fireworks. No cheesy pickup lines. No "you up?" texts at 2 a.m. There are courtyards, pine trees, rain falling softly on tiled rooftops, and someone, usually a man, hiding behind a wall, composing a poem for the woman he's been in love with since spring. And even that is already breaking several unspoken rules. Because in polite society, love, real love, was supposed to be quiet, coded, and painfully indirect. You didn't declare your feelings. You implied them. Through poetry, through brushstrokes, through the arrangement of seasonal metaphors, through how you folded the corner of your paper. Yes, even the crease mattered. Let's begin with the noble classes. Imagine you're a Heian period aristocrat, lounging in your multiple layers of silk. You've seen someone at a festival, a flash of sleeve, a whisper behind a fan. You've become captivated. Do you approach them? Absolutely not. That would be vulgar. Instead, you write a poem. Not a long one. Just a few lines, 5, 7, 5, 7, 7 syllables. A waka. About the season. About longing. About that moment when moonlight hits the edge of their fan. You slip it into a handmade envelope. You spritz it with a gentle perfume, something subtle like plum blossom. You deliver it by hand, or if you're lucky, by discreet servant. And then you wait. A day. 2 days. 3 if you're being humbled. Eventually a response arrives. Another poem. Equally delicate. Full of layered meaning. If she responds with another seasonal reference, perhaps the withering of summer leaves, you've just been rejected. Politely. Painfully. But if she replies with a moonrise metaphor, you may proceed. To what? More poetry. Because in aristocratic Japan, courtship was a paper-based marathon. Now let's say you've graduated to a midnight visit. This is called yobai, night crawling. And no, it's not as creepy as it sounds. In Heian society, a man of proper status might be allowed to visit a woman's residence after dark, discreetly. He arrives in silence. He taps lightly on the shoji screen. She accepts, she lets him in. He must then compose himself, speak softly, flatter her poetry skills, and say nothing too forward. If he's lucky, he may spend the night. But he must leave before dawn, like Cinderella in reverse. If he overstays, shame. If he gets caught, scandal. If her parents find out, married. Instantly. Because the line between love and obligation was as thin as rice paper. And for women, love was even trickier. You couldn't chase. You couldn't flirt. You had to respond, gracefully, indirectly, never too eagerly. The perfect courtly woman was mysterious, elegant, slightly sad, like a fading lotus petal. Even physical appearance wasn't the main attraction. It was handwriting, perfume, poetry, the rustle of robes behind a screen. A noble woman was often never seen fully, only glimpsed behind curtains, her identity half concealed by a fan. Romance was a dream you were never supposed to wake up from. And if things escalated, you married. But marriage was rarely about passion. It was about alliance, property, and family rank. Many marriages were arranged. Love, if it existed, came after. Or not at all. Still, within that structure, people found ways. Secret letters. Hidden meanings in flower arrangements. Silent glances across temple courtyards. For the lower classes, love was more direct, but still bound by rules. You couldn't just approach someone in the field and say, "Nice rice paddy. Want to get noodles?" No. First came community approval, then family meetings, then carefully worded proposals, often using go-betweens. You might gift a comb, or a hand towel, or a single plum, each object symbolic. And for women, reputation was everything. A woman seen laughing too loudly with a man could be ruined. Even walking beside someone too frequently might ignite rumors. Entire lives were built and destroyed by glances. And if you were already married, flirting was treason. Literally. Adultery could cost you your status, your land, even your life. The shame wasn't just yours. It was your family's, your ancestors', your future children's. Still, love found its way. Through coded speech. Through the poetry of things unsaid. And if you ever kissed someone, it wasn't in public. It wasn't at all sometimes. Physical intimacy was almost entirely private, unspoken, unshown. No public hand-holding. No long hugs. Definitely no spontaneous kisses under cherry blossoms. Even touch was a narrative. And there were rules for heartbreak too. You don't beg. You don't cry publicly. You send one final poem. You burn the last letter. You vanish into social fog. And the best part? The community helps you forget. No one asks. No one lingers. Because in a society obsessed with harmony, personal suffering was folded into collective stillness. Let's not forget LGBTQ+ love. It existed. Quietly. Especially among monks, samurai, and nobles. Male-male relationships were often idealized in warrior culture, emphasizing loyalty and affection. Female-female connections, though less documented, appear in poetry, art, and private journals. But again, quiet, poetic, often coded. Because love in this world is never loud. It's a subtle presence, a faint scent, a brush of sleeves. It's a secret dance under lantern light. And if you don't understand the steps, you're not just awkward, you're dangerous. So you've written the poems, tied the knots, bowed the bows, avoided eye contact with every nobleman, samurai, or priest you passed. You've even survived a late-night visit without being forcibly wed. You've done well. But here's the problem with perfection in medieval Japan. It's an illusion. Because sooner or later you will mess up. And when you do, the punishment won't be a slap or a scolding. It'll be worse. It'll be a quiet, precise social death. Let's start simple. Imagine you're a merchant. You speak out of turn at a gathering of warriors. Maybe you interrupt a samurai. Maybe you just laugh a little too loud. No one reacts. No one corrects you. But next time, you're not invited. Your name? Not on the list. Your family? Suddenly less welcome. Your stall at the market? Quietly avoided. That's how it begins. The slow freeze. Because in this world, public rudeness isn't corrected. It's remembered. It's whispered about in the tea houses. It's recorded in letters. It's taught as cautionary tales. You don't fall from grace here. You vanish. But let's rewind. What counts as rude, anyway? Now the game begins. There are the obvious ones. Pointing with chopsticks. Failing to bow. Sitting before your elders. Wearing white in the wrong season. Touching someone without permission. Laughing with your mouth open. But then there are the subtle ones. Complimenting someone's robe too directly. Speaking too confidently about your own achievements. Addressing a samurai without proper titles. Offering a gift in the wrong envelope. Refusing second helpings too quickly implies their food wasn't worth finishing. You see the pattern. Even when you're trying to be polite, you might still be rude. Because intent doesn't matter. Perception does. Let's imagine some famous faux pas. There's the story of a noble woman who walked too fast at a procession. She was in a rush. The crowd parted. She was never invited again. There's the scholar who corrected a monk during a lecture. Politely. Quietly. He was banned from every monastery library from Kyoto to Nara. There's even a samurai who bowed with his left hand over his right. An honest mistake. 2 weeks later, he was reassigned to a post in the mountains, where it was cold, and bears lived. You might think, well, at least it's non-violent. Not always. Some rudeness did get physical punishment. Let's talk about samurai etiquette. Disrespect to samurai in public? If they deem it severe enough, they can draw their sword. This was the concept of kirisutgomen, the legal right to kill a commoner who insulted their honor. Of course, the insult had to be serious. But serious was flexible. Stand too close? Maybe serious. Talk over them? Probably serious. Forget to bow when they walk past? Definitely serious. 1 minute, you're standing in the rice market. Next minute, your social head is rolling. Now consider courtly insults. In the Heian court, no one shouts. They shame you with silence. You say something inappropriate during a poetry gathering? No one replies to your verse. That's a formal rejection. A verbal exile. You may still be sitting in the room sipping plum wine, but spiritually, you're already gone. They even had a system of ranking letters. Let's say you wrote to someone of higher status. If they replied on inferior paper, that was an insult. If they replied late, a warning. If they didn't reply at all, congratulations. You've achieved the social equivalent of falling through the floor. And don't forget ritual errors. Miss a bow at a shrine? You're impure. Step on the sacred gravel? You've offended the gods. Speak during a purification rite? You've ruined the ceremony, and possibly your lineage. Some priests would demand immediate penance. Maybe a public apology. Maybe days of silence. Maybe fasting. Sometimes they just look at you. That look stays with you. And now, let's talk about public embarrassment. The worst punishment? It's not exile. It's being talked about. If you're labeled rude, people stop inviting you. Stop acknowledging you. Stop saying your name. You become the ghost of the community. Still visible. Never heard. If you're wealthy, you can try to recover by making generous donations, hosting flawless events, apologizing via elaborate letter, perhaps even becoming a monk, the historical equivalent of, I'm taking time to reflect. If you're poor, you leave. And sometimes, even that isn't enough. Let's go deeper. What if you're a woman? The rules double. Laughing too loudly? Scandalous. Wearing overly bright colors? Vulgar. Writing too many letters to one man? Desperate. Attending a gathering uninvited, even by accident? Ruined. There's a tale of a woman who used a perfume normally worn by courtesans, by mistake. Within weeks, no one would speak to her. By season's end, she had joined a mountain nunnery. Her only crime? Smelling wrong. For samurai, the stakes are higher. A failed duel of etiquette can lead to literal seppuku, ritual suicide. If you offend your lord, dishonor your clan, or simply disgrace yourself in a public display, you may be asked to atone. The ceremony is elegant. Clean robes, a white mat, a blade, witnesses. Your final act isn't an explosion. It's a bow, then a cut, then silence. Even death is performed with composure. And yet, for all this fear of failure, people thrived in it. Because the rules were clear. Once you learned them, you could dance through society like a master calligrapher. You knew where to stand, how to speak, when to apologize. You moved through the world like a scroll unfolding, gracefully. It wasn't about suppressing the self. It was about honoring the space between selves. And if you broke that space, the punishment was never just for you. It was for your name, your family, your future, your ghost. So next time you raise your chopsticks, bow in public, or say someone's name, do it carefully. You never know who's watching, or how long they'll remember. Let's stop talking in abstractions for a moment. Let's live it. Let's walk through an actual day in medieval Japan, as you. No titles, no special roles. Not a samurai, not a noble, not a monk with calligraphy on his breath. Just you. A common person. Perhaps a mid-level artisan. Perhaps a low-ranking attendant. Someone who lives in between the ranks. It's dawn. The rooster crows not to wake you but to warn you, you are already late. You rise. Kneel first. Bow to the household altar. Your back aches. You slept on straw. You don't stretch. That's too expressive. Instead, you quietly fold your bedding. Neat. Centered. With the same care you'd fold a letter to your superior. You step outside. The air is cool. You greet the sun, mentally. Out loud, you greet your neighbor with a bow. A small one. You're equal in class but slightly younger. He bows slightly deeper. He's apologizing for not having cleaned the alley yesterday. You accept his apology with silence. This is grace. You carry a basket of tools. You're headed to the workshop. On the way, you pass a group of children. They bow to you. You bow back, but not too deeply. Children should learn hierarchy. You smile. Just a little. Too much, and someone will think you've gone mad, or worse, drunk before noon. At the street corner, you see a samurai. You stop. Wait. He walks by. You bow. Eyes low. You hear the soft jingle of the small bell on his scabbard. The sound of status. You wait until he turns the corner before moving again. You're late now. But you still take time to clean your shoes before entering the shop. Inside, your master is already working. You bow. He doesn't look up. That means you bowed well. You light the fire, arrange the tools. Everything has a place. Each rag, each blade, each hinge. Misplace one item and you've insulted the spirit of the trade. Mid-morning, a client arrives. You serve tea. Kneel. Present the cup with 2 hands. Withdraw. Quietly. He sips. He does not speak. This is a compliment. You are relieved. Back to work. You carve. Sand. Fold. Bend. But even your hands must behave. You don't grunt. You don't tap. You don't whistle. You breathe in rhythm with the other workers. That's how you maintain harmony. Watch. You eat in silence. The youngest says, "Ita de kamasu." Everyone echoes. You chew quietly. A man slurps. He realizes. He bows. No one says anything. But everyone remembers. Afternoon. You carry a finished piece to the merchant district. On the way you pass a funeral. You stop. Bow. Face away. It's not your family. But grief is a public thing. You honor it with stillness. At the merchant's door you wait. Someone more senior is already being served. You step back. You look down. You become invisible. When it's your turn, you speak softly. Your words are careful. You don't sell the object. You offer it as though it deserves a home. The merchant agrees. Slowly. With 3 nods. You bow. Step back. Evening is near. You stop by the shrine. You wash your hands. Left, then right. Rinse your mouth. You bow. You clap twice. You bow again. You do not ask for anything. You thank the gods for not cursing your spine today. Back home. You remove your shoes. Turn them neatly toward the door. You bow to your mother. She bows back. You bow deeper. She is older. You eat in silence. She asks how your day went. You say, "The tools were kind today." This is a complete answer. You help clean. Without being asked. You do not yawn. You do not complain. Your exhaustion is private. Your grace is public. Before bed you write a short note. To your friend. A small apology for having spoken too long at the tea stall last week. You attach a pressed flower. You burn a little incense. Just enough. You fold the note in thirds. Tuck the edges. Align the corners. Looks like a poem. Because it is. Now it's night. You lie on straw. You stare at the ceiling. You think of everything you didn't say. Every bow that felt slightly off. Every silence that may have been too long. And you wonder, did I live with dignity today? Was I seen? Or did I simply disappear correctly? And that, my friend, is a normal day. Now multiply that by 12,000. That's your life. No scandals. No glory. Just the quiet performance of harmony. And here's the twist. It works. It's peaceful. Predictable. You feel held by rules older than memory. You belong. But only if you behave. Only if you bow. Only if you vanish beautifully. By now you may be wondering, why all the bowing, the silence, the rules for walking, the poetry-coded romance, the social death by chopstick positioning? Why build a world where politeness is not a choice, but a demand? The answer isn't simple. Because in medieval Japan, manners weren't just social lubricant. They were philosophy, a worldview, a survival system in a world that believed chaos wasn't just inconvenient, it was dangerous. To understand, we must talk about three concepts. Three short words that shaped an entire civilization. Let's begin with wa. Translated loosely, it means harmony. But that doesn't capture its full power. Wa is the foundational principle of Japanese society. The belief that peace and cohesion are not just ideals but necessities. That every person, every gesture, every moment must contribute to balance, not just externally but internally. It's why disputes are avoided, why opinions are softened, why emotions are hidden, not because they're shameful but because they disrupt. Why isn't about repressing your truth? It's about protecting our space. You fold your anger. You temper your grief. You bury your desires, not because you're weak but because you're loyal. Loyal to the group, the family, the village, the unseen threads that hold everything together. You don't make waves. You ripple quietly. Next is Ray. Usually translated as courtesy or etiquette. But it's deeper than table manners. Ray is the belief that form reveals truth. That beauty is a kind of morality. That how you do something matters as much, if not more, than what you do. It's why tea ceremonies take hours. Why letters are folded like origami. Why silence is a virtue. Ray teaches that every action, no matter how small, can become an offering. A bow isn't just respect. It's a gesture of self-erasure. A way of saying, I am lowering myself to lift you. Even language follows Ray. You don't speak plainly. You speak artfully. You don't ask for things. You humbly request them should the timing be appropriate and your heart be open. You don't refuse. You regretfully find yourself unable to proceed. Ray is the performance of consideration. And in that performance, something real is born. Then comes on. The most haunting of the three. On means obligation. But not the contractual kind. On is the invisible debt you owe to those who have given you life, opportunity, safety, wisdom, even if they never ask for anything in return. Your parents? You owe them your existence. Your teacher? Your mind. Your Lord? Your security. Your community? Your identity. And these debts are never repaid. You carry them. Quietly. Gratefully. Like incense smoke that never quite fades. On is what makes the elderly honored even when they can no longer contribute. It's what makes students bow to teachers they haven't seen in decades. It's what makes a grown samurai kneel before the mother who once tied his sash. And it's not guilt, it's honor. On tells you, you are not alone. You were made by others. Never forget. These three ideas, wa-re on, create the world you've been living in. A world where the self is not king. Where the individual bends, not because they're broken, but because they're part of something bigger. Where structure isn't oppression, it's compassion. Because when everyone follows the same rituals, no one has to guess the rules. When everyone bows the same way, no one feels uncertain. When everyone silences their sorrow together, no one feels exposed. It creates a society that feels, on the surface, gentle, slow, deliberate. But underneath, it's precise, demanding, graceful, exhausting, and beautiful. Of course it has flaws. Rigidity breeds pressure. Hierarchy breeds fear. Suppressed emotions don't always disappear. They ferment. Not everyone fits the mold. Not every silence is wise. But still there's a kind of peace here. A quiet dignity that whispers through the cedar trees, the folded robes, the unmoving tea bowl. It tells you, you belong here. So long as you respect what we've built. And what they've built is nothing short of a civilization of restraint. Where politeness isn't fake. It's faithful. To the idea that beauty matters. That grace can heal. That form can hold you when feelings are too wild to name. It's why funerals feel poetic. Why romance feels sacred. Why failure feels survivable. Because there's a script, a ritual, a way forward. Even when everything inside you is trembling. And maybe that's the final gift of all this etiquette. Not perfection. Not reputation. But stability. In a world of fire, flood, famine, and war, the one thing you can control? How you bow. How you pour tea. How you say goodbye. And sometimes, that's enough. Bowed too shallow to your neighbor, forgot to step aside for the passing samurai, and when the merchant handed you tea, you lifted it with only one hand. One hand. And the chopsticks. Oh, the chopsticks. You stabbed them into your rice like a western fork, paused mid-meal to gesture wildly while telling a story, and, yes, you licked them. No one said anything, but you could feel it. The temperature of the room dropped 2 degrees. One woman coughed, and another readjusted her sleeves with elegance. You tried to recover. You complimented the host's kimono, too directly. You laughed too loudly. You asked a question out of turn. You forgot to bow before leaving. You folded your napkin, incorrectly. And when you said thank you, you said it in the wrong tone. Too cheerful. Too casual. Like you meant it. You thought, at least I did better at the shrine. Except you walked through the middle path, the God's path. You didn't purify your hands in the right order. You clapped once, then twice again, then panicked and clapped a third time. You bowed too late. And when you left, you forgot to bow at all. But it wasn't just the rituals. It was the silences you broke. The glances you held too long. The questions you asked that should have stayed inside your head. It was the way you breathed just a little too freely. Because here, in this world of layered language and feather-soft customs, survival isn't about brute strength or clever words. It's about sensing the rhythm of a society built entirely on what isn't said. And the truth? You didn't flop once. You flopped beautifully, constantly, and without even realizing. And that's okay. Because the people around you, they didn't scold you. They didn't shout. They simply adjusted. Their bows grew shorter. Their replies cooler. The invitations stopped coming. Your name stopped appearing on the list. And still no one said a word. Because in this world, failure doesn't echo. It dissolves. You don't crash. You vanish. And even then, no one resents you. They just don't notice you anymore. You became a cautionary tale, not tragic, not villainous. Just unfortunate. A name folded gently into a story told over tea with a chuckle, a shake of the head, and a quiet sigh of, ah yes. Night falls in medieval Japan like a curtain of ink, soft, deliberate, final. There are no neon lights. No glowing screens. Just the slow hum of crickets, the flicker of oil lamps, and the heavy scent of cedar smoke curling from nearby hearths. And in this darkness begins a new rhythm, the rhythm of stillness. Because sleep in this world, it isn't an afterthought, it's a ritual. First the bath, not a quick rinse, not a power shower, but a slow steaming process that strips not just dirt, but noise from the day. If you are lucky, if you are wealthy, you have access to a wooden tub, heated with firewood. The water is not for scrubbing. You wash before entering, seated on a low stool, ladling warm water over your shoulders. Then you soak, silently, alone. The bath is not conversation time. It's reflection. Even children understand this. You emerge not just clean but softened. Then comes the robe. A simple cotton yukata tied loosely. You move slower now, your limbs cooled, your mind quieted. You step outside, just for a moment, to see the moon. Because in this world, the moon isn't background. It's memory. It's metaphor. It's the thing you reference in every poem, every longing, every goodbye. So you pause. You breathe. You bow. And only then do you return inside. The futon is already laid. A thin mat of straw. A cotton sheet. A folded cloth for your head. It's not comfort by modern standards, but it is precise. Everything aligned. Everything clean. And before you lie down, there is one more step. You kneel at the family altar. You light a stick of incense. You press your palms together. You bow. No words spoken. No wishes made. Just thank you. To the ancestors. To the gods. To the day. You are not asking for anything. You are releasing the weight of duty, the pressure of posture, the invisible masks. And in that act of letting go, something sacred happens. You feel light. You lie down on your side, never flat on your back. That's how the dead sleep. You curl slightly. You cover your mouth as you yawn, because even that is a gesture of grace. And then, silence. But it's not empty. It's full of layers. The whisper of wind through paper screens. The creak of the house settling. The distant splash of water from the bathhouse down the lane. The soft murmur of your grandmother chanting sutras. No one tells you to go to bed. But you know, because the world around you is preparing too. Lanterns dimmed. Shoji doors slid shut. Even the dogs curl tighter. If you're a child, someone might sing to you, not loudly but softly, rhythmically, a lullaby that sounds like breath. And if you're old, you recite poetry, not out loud, in your head. Lines you learned as a boy. Lines that comforted you through loss. Lines that still smell faintly of plum blossoms. Because in this world, night isn't just the end of a day. It's the continuation of the self, folded neatly into silence. Now imagine, you're lying in a small house. Your work was honest. Your words were few. Your posture was proper. You bow to no one tonight. But everyone you bowed to is in your heart. Your master, your lover, your neighbor,